Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Danny Pecorelli, Managing Director of the exclusive collection and bona fide hotel titan. Coming up on today's show, Danny reveals a groundbreaking new fad diet.
So I started on mint sauce.
Phil sets the ground rules. It's my own show, I can do what I want. And Danny tells us who is the boss.
My wife makes me sit with my back to the restaurant.
All that and so much more as Danny chats us through his fantastic story and journey to date. My chat with Danny is riddled with stories all the way through, and he remains an absolute inspiration to us all. He continues his and Exclusive's evolution into new spaces and new ideas. We get a small taste of what's coming in our chat, and I'm incredibly grateful for Danny giving up his time to share his story. And we've got more incredible stories lined up in the coming weeks. So please don't forget to give us a like, subscribe, and a review on whatever podcast platform you're listening. It really does make a huge difference. Enjoy. Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street. Now, when I started this humble little show all those many months ago, I did write a list of people that I would love to have gotten on the show. Today's guest was on that list. Just going to get stuck straight into this today, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome the MD of the exclusive collection, Danny Pecorelli.
Hi there.
Great. How are you?
Yeah, fantastic, really good, and thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, my pleasure. I've been looking forward to this for some time because the one thing that I mean, obviously, anyone who works in the hotel industry has probably heard of you, but actually when I was doing my research, trying to get some insight into how you actually ended up getting there. There's not that much information out there, so I'm excited to learn about your journey today, and we'll get onto that, of course, in a second. But you're a busy man. You've got a lot going on, I think. So I thank you for making time for us today.
Pleasure. Better to be busy than not busy.
Yeah, absolutely. This seems to be a running theme in hospitality, actually. And I was talking to Francisco over at Clifton House on the previous show, which was actually released this week. And he said that actually, and I really love this, if you keep yourself busy, you stay in focus a lot more. So actually it can improve your productivity and just generally your ability to achieve things.
Absolutely. I've got a coach who's really interesting chap, but that focus and sort of staying in the moment is one of the things that he really pushes.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. Well, I mean, let's get to it. Let's take us all the way back, because obviously you are at the helm of one of the most recognizable hotel companies in the UK, but there's probably a bit of a journey to get there. So take us all the way back to the very beginning. How did you get into hospitality in the first place?
So I'm probably like a few people I'm a second generation hotelier. Hotels
Right.
are one of those hotels, restaurants, where there's a lot of families that work in that space. And so in a way, I was born into hotels, but I made a conscious choice to work outside of the exclusive collection when I first started.
Yeah.
So I worked at a Savoy Hotel. I worked a Four Seasons property, a Four Seasons Park Lane, and I worked in America, in Washington DC, at a big 1,500 bedroom convention hotel. So I did the Cornell summer school. So I had about 5 or 6 years outside of the family business before I started in it. And then my dad, huge inspiration, was very good in the sense of one of the downsides of family businesses has to be, if you promote people without merit, then you can end up in a pickle. So I had very strict targets on quality and on financials before I could progress at any stage. So I ended up running Manning's Heath, which is a golf club that we owned at the time, South Lodge Hotel, and then moved on to do a group role.
Right. Okay. So basically you had no choice.
It's interesting. I've got brothers and sisters, and they're not in the business. So I
Right.
would argue to this day I do have choice, and
Yeah.
genuinely, this isn't the sort of industry you can work in if you haven't got a huge passion and just a love for
Yeah.
food, drink, people, all of the good stuff that our industry has an abundance, and so yeah, I definitely had a choice.
Yeah, and basically what's happened then is that you've got all of the genes that are hospitality. That's effectively all went in and channeled into you.
150%. Yeah.
Great stuff. When did you kind of know that? I mean, there must have been a point through your childhood, I guess, whereby you're wondering whether I'm just going to follow in the footsteps of parents, or I'm going to go and carve out my own path.
I actually relatively early. I did a summer job, bizarrely at a fleet service station making sandwiches,
Okay.
and my dad at the time was running Trust House Forte, and I, without him knowing, because they owned all the service stations, I went and got this job, and even just making sandwiches, I was on the night shift making. I just absolutely loved it, and I did when I finished sort of formal education. I worked for a year for a bank, and I did that deliberately to work outside of hospitality. I knew I wanted to go into, but I sort of wanted to learn to work, especially after full time education. I think you kind of you still want to live a bit of a life, and
Yeah.
I
I love the wry grin on your face as you say that
yeah,
there.
well,
Yeah.
I'm trying to, I appreciate, I've got to be careful with my language here. So I just wanted to also validate if I was going to enjoy anything else. I worked for a bank for a year and I hated it, but that was a really positive thing for me because I learned, yeah, I'm making the right choice. And then I
Yeah.
went straight into the grill room in the kitchen in the Savoy. Just a amazing experience. Pretty brutal. I lost about a stone and a half in weight in the first 6 months, but absolutely loved it.
Yeah, and what a hell of a training ground, right? For you to, I suppose, once you know you're not making sandwiches there, I'm guessing.
No, no, I was on the veg section as you normally start off in kitchens.
Yeah, and that's relentless, isn't it? I mean, I remember somebody telling me a story actually who was on the Savoy training program way back, and he said that they used to get handed buckets of mushrooms, button mushrooms, and they had to carve them all into roses using a cleaver. And that's I always remember that story, and I thought I didn't know, I had no idea if there's any truth in that at all. But it wouldn't surprise me because of the kind of level of muscle memory, attention to detail, all of these things that you're training into yourself.
So I started on mint sauce. I had 3 weeks of just making mint sauce,
Right,
hand chopped, no sort of Robocoop or anything, no mixer, and I looked like I was smoking 40 Benson Hedges a day because my fingers were yellow. It was just, but it was all hand chopped,
right.
which of course now you could do it in a quarter of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. But I suppose is that the first role then that started because as you said yourself, it was quite brutal, and I'd imagine that's because it's quite full on, quite intense. But your learning curve and learning experience is high, which can be incredibly motivating. I assume that it must have been motivating because you stuck it out.
Yeah, and I had a hugely inspirational head chef at the time, a guy called Andrew Hill, who went on to be food and beverage director of Glen Eagles. So
Right.
really, yeah, just great human being, inspirational.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were in there. How long did you serve at the pleasure of the Savoy?
So only just under a year basically, because I did 6 months in kitchen, 6 months front of house in the grill room,
Yep.
and that had been prearranged because I wanted to. I didn't want to be a chef, but I wanted to start off in the kitchen just to kind of get a good knowledge.
Yeah.
And then I went to Four Seasons. I did all my time front of house, reception, nights, all of that good stuff.
Right. Okay. And that was the Four Seasons in London.
Yes, yeah. And
Yeah.
then I went to the States and worked actually in sales and marketing for as I said earlier, it was a 1,500 bedroom convention hotel, which was just the scale was absolutely. I'm going to age myself a bit, but it held one of the presidential inaugural balls, but it was George Bush Senior, so
Right.
that's aging me a bit.
Yeah, yeah. But again, a very different type of hospitality from I would imagine from working at the Savoy and then Four Seasons, but no less important, right? I mean, this is still. I think a lot of people are very very focused on luxury being the pinnacle, but in actual fact, there's so many elements and facets to hospitality, and each of them teaches you something. I can't imagine what the numbers must have been like when you had a convention in town.
I mean, it's absolutely incredible. And some of those conventions took over not just that hotel, would take over most of Washington. You'd have conventions for 20, 30, 40,000 people spread out of a number of hotels, but the actual convention being held in that hotel. I used to wander around after work, wander around the conventions just to get my head around what was
Soak
going
it
on.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, check in and check out must have been fun. You got 1,500 people, or maybe even more than 1,500 people, all arriving pretty much at the same time and departing at the same time.
But as you say, you learn something from everything, and that's the beauty of hospitality, be it luxury or mass market or middle market or a little cafe. It doesn't matter. You can learn something or try something different in every bit of the market.
Yeah. And was that the motivation to go to the States? Was to kind of put your head into something different culture, different jobs, different hotels?
Yes, all of the above. But also, I at the time the Americans were pretty good at sales and marketing, probably a little bit ahead of the UK. So I was in the sales area, but I also in my spare time was talking to the marketing function. So I really picked up a lot around selling from that. And by the time I left, they were letting me sell over between 50 and up to 50 and 100 bedrooms at a time for a conference.
Right.
And that was bearing in mind where I eventually went into, which is our own business. At that time, we didn't have a hotel with more than 50 bedrooms. So,
Right.
it was just, and that was the tiny job they were giving me.
Yeah. That's it's madness, isn't it, to contemplate the difference of types of hospitalities that exist. And that's just within the hotel world. I mean, it's notwithstanding everything else that you can do. I mean, you've highlighted a couple yourself with the sandwich making, and I don't doubt that you were still delivering hospitality whilst working for the bank, just not officially as a job.
Yeah, but that was one of the reasons I didn't enjoy it because they didn't like hospitality
Right,
in
right.
terms of delivery. It wasn't, it was process, process, process. So, yeah,
Got you. Definitely qualified you into hospitality then. That.
absolutely.
No, that's great. So from the convention center, what happened next? Where did you head after that?
So Cornell did the summer school there, which was really good, and then came back to the UK and started at South Lodge as effectively a duty manager, and then moved on to Manning's Heath, ran a golf club for 2.5 years, which was really interesting experience. We bought a property that was physically really run down. We built a new clubhouse, a different location, opened second 18 hole of golf, so took it up to 36. So I love those the physical projects of developing the clubhouse, and even just developing a new golf course. You just learn so much on those sort of projects.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have an interest in golf yourself?
No.
Oh, okay. Well,
Much to,
I was going to say, because I mean, we'll probably we will get onto this because I've written it down as a question at some point. But obviously, with Pennyhill Park being the kind of the home of England rugby these days, do you have an interest in sport? Has that come from you? Is that just one of those things that's just happened?
I love my sport, but I'm really conscious. It's really interesting if sport is your work. In I.e., if you're running a golf club and then I'm playing golf, I don't find that I'm enjoying it as much because I'm looking at, what's there's litter on the course, or is the
Right.
striping right, or the agronomy on the golf greens, is it right? And the same, I love going to rugby, but out of work, I'm a season ticket holder at Arsenal, so I'll go and watch that. That's so I find that when you're immersed in something, it's not if I go out to a restaurant, of course I can have a lovely time, but I'm looking at it through a different lens.
Yeah.
To my wife makes me sit with my back to the restaurant if there's a choice of
That's
just because but that's just the way we're wired, isn't it? If you're
yeah.
if you're passionate about something and you just yeah.
I'm laughing because my wife makes me do exactly the same. However, I caveat now that we've been when we got together, my wife was not a foodie at all. I've definitely converted her into a foodie. So now she wants to take the seat where you can see the whole restaurant because she just loves it. She's not picking it apart like I used to do. I definitely have relaxed about that over the years and learned to kind of live in the moment and enjoy it a bit more. But you just can't help yourself sometimes, though, can you? When you're just, even though you're just wanting to be there to relax and enjoy, if something's just not the way that it should be, I just can't help myself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. My brain always goes to if you see something. I mean, I never worry about if something's going wrong per se, as in it doesn't affect if you go out. And I think when you go out, particularly if you learn from what people are doing right, so that's the inspiration, isn't it? It's the positive, but it's still hard to rewire your brain to well. I know there's a stain all over the menu. Why? Is that happening with
Yeah,
me? Is kind of
yeah,
where my brain goes to.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we people within hospitality become, I think, and I don't know whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, world class at complaining. And I'm not a complainer by any stretch of the imagination, but if something needs to be flipped and put right, there's a way that I approach it that is not the same way that it's not all guns blazing and not. I'm never nasty about anything. There's always a thought process behind. Well, maybe they've got X, Y, Z going on, but it means that actually, when in the process of complaining, you end up getting far more back because you're kind of in the hospitality mindset of just being kind about it,
Yeah, it's funny. See, if I go somewhere, I've never complained in a hotel or a restaurant.
right?
I tell you, I did once, but I had fish that was so off. I mean, it was rancid. But I just don't because I don't want to. I just won't go back.
Right.
And I'm in the camp of yeah, just it is what it is. I've learned my lesson. I'm not going to go back there.
Right. Got you. Well, you live and learn what works for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And plus, you never know. One day some of these people might be working for you. So you don't want to alienate them at that point.
Well, I don't know if you've had to complain about something, they're probably not going to be working
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you're running a golf course at this time, having had no experience of that by the sounds of it, which must have been a really interesting experience to get your head around. Because running a golf club is a very different ball game. Pardon the pun. From running a hotel.
But it's still hospitality. It's still you're providing a member experience, and I kind of with all I don't think of what we do today as is hospitality, but we're in the experience business. We're creating experiences because hospitality is so much wider now. I mean, we've got with Exclusive, we've got 2 spas, we've got a pub, we've got a cookery school, we've got a golf course. You're providing experiences, and that's with hospitality at the heart of them. So,
Yeah.
although there's, with golf especially, there's a lot of the technical stuff around agronomy and making grass work for the golfers. It's still, that's a technical thing that you've got experts, same as having a chef. I can't cook to a Michelin star level, but you can get to know what good looks like and how the processes, if you like, of who to recruit, how to set up an infrastructure that works for an amazing Michelin star kitchen. It's no different in spa or golf or cookery school.
Yeah. Does that come then from, I suppose, an almost basic mentality of putting yourself in the shoes of the individual who will be experiencing that?
That's exactly it. What does a golf, someone playing golf is going to look for, you know, greens of a certain quality and the speed of playing the greens, bunkers presented in a certain way that don't have stones in or don't flood, or so absolutely there's a customer journey for everything. If you go shopping in a physical shop, you're experiencing a customer journey from the moment you're sort of about to walk into a shop to the moment that you paid your money at the till. It's, customer journey is a customer journey. It's just different physical stop points at each part of it and different interactions with people along that journey.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think I've spoken about this on the show many, many times. I think a lot of the time in business, in any form of business, that people can get bogged down in overthinking things. But actually, generally speaking, it's usually the simple things and doing the simple things well and consistently that actually ends up making the biggest difference.
Absolutely, you're spot on, and the right detail at the point in time.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, because if you're staying in a hotel room and you've got tea and coffee, what's the detail on that? Or someone's using a mirror to blow dry their hair. What's the detail that's right for that bit of the journey? It isn't rocket science at the end of the day.
Yeah. And actually, once again, I'm going to refer to my wife here. That's one of my wife's biggest bugbears around the world is the place that's designated to dry your hair in a hotel room is often very poorly lit.
Yeah,
And it can be as simple as that can make a big difference to an experience.
yeah, absolutely. So our job as hoteliers or in your hospitality is to understand what those points are on the journey, and does the physical product deliver that, and do the people deliver that, and understand what those points are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, to be clear, this is definitely a wife thing. I can't remember a time where I blew dry my hair. But there we
I'm,
are.
I'm, I think I'm in the same camp as you.
Yeah, there's definitely less and less hair these days to blow dry as well, but that's a different story. Um, from the golf course, how did you? Because I know that I think we're as anyone who would go and hunt out what your background is. I had a look on your LinkedIn profile, and you were the general manager at South Lodge before taking a group role. How did you meander into that position from the golf club?
I sort of hit the new clubhouse that opened. It was doing well quality wise. We got the course into the top 100, which was one of the sort of quality targets, and then financially it was doing well. And there we lost the GM at South Lodge, and so I went over there and did that for 4 years, which I absolutely loved, and it's beautiful property. We did another we did a project. We always doing projects, sort of expanding organically. We did a project there, adding a few bedrooms, and it was just a great experience. And it goes back to I'm a hotelier at heart, and that's just it was the loveliest thing to see that property grow. We got 4 red stars, which was one of my quality targets,
Yeah.
and just started to really properly meet some amazing industry people as well at that time.
Right, yeah, and that can have a huge bearing as well, can't it? Like and I've certainly felt that in the throes of doing this podcast. I've been lucky enough to speak to so many different people from within the industry, and that will long may that continue. And to me, it just elevates my love for the industry even more, because you see, and you're another case in point. You see people who are just destined to do this, that really bring something to the table, and that to me can't help but get me enthused and excited about what's possible and what the future holds, rather than getting bogged down in all the doom and gloom that is easier to go find if you so let yourself.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's and you never when you meet people, it's always the new things they're doing or the interesting things that they're doing that that's what inspires you, and you only you can read about it and physically see some of it, but when you're talking to people within the industry and also sort of comparable industries or even tangential industries, you just get so inspired by talking to people, and someone will go, "Oh, I'm doing this," and you think, "Wow, why didn't I think of that?"
Yeah, yeah. But that's I suppose a natural case of general industry evolution, is that
Yeah,
if everybody else is pushing the bar, and you're not at that bar in that particular place, but then you push yourself to there as well, and in doing so you come up with other ideas that take you into another place where you can improve things, and then everybody else sees that, and it's a wonderful kind of upward trajectory for the industry as a whole. And I don't think people I certainly think that hospitality's gotten very, very good at this buzzword co-opetition,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah.
making everybody better so that we're all better together, and therefore we're leaving a better industry behind us.
And I do think our industry is so good at just sharing. I love the fact that we all compete in different markets, but a lot of my competitors are really good buddies as well.
Yeah,
Industry colleagues who you can pick up the phone to, and in 1 minute you're helping each other out. They're saying, "What are you doing this with this?" or "How do you do that?" and vice versa. And the next minute you're looking, you've got an inquiry for a conference for 50 people, and it's with the same people. But I think we're quite unique as an industry in that way.
I completely agree, and I think that's really been cemented in the last couple of years, which we won't get into in any case, because that's in the past, and it's all about the
Absolutely.
future now. But no, that's great. So you were at South Lodge, and then you took the group role, which I suppose, for all intents and purposes, you've been in ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Seems like an age ago, but I mean, it's been good because we've grown. Exclusive Collection has grown in number of properties, number of rooms, offering, and I've kind of been able to grow with that. So it's been a lovely evolution, shall we say?
yeah, I think there's probably a huge element of as well of you've got a fantastic product. There's no question about that, and I'm lucky enough to have experienced some of that. I will definitely be experiencing more in different places, but Penny Hill Park was incredible, and I don't think you can deliver a a really really high standard of hospitality if you don't mean it. If it's just about checks and balances and pound signs and all of that sort of thing, then ultimately hospitality gets lost. And the thing that from the moment we arrived at Penny Hill Park, we just were made to feel nearly like we were the only people in the building. And I just think that's such a wonderful and very human orientated capability beyond how amazing your building and product is. The people element is ultimately what sets you apart, I think.
But it's what sets anyone apart. I think you're right. You can, all right. There is a skill set to building a good or great product, and there's another skill set in thinking how can you differentiate that great product. But at the heart of it, as you say, if you don't have the right people and the right people culture and philosophy, that just you haven't got the great building's going to not work because you haven't got the the amazing people to deliver that hospitality. I always say, I can walk in a hotel and I can tell whether the accountants are running the business or if it's a sort of VC owned business. You can just tell because
Yeah,
it doesn't have that sort of, that hospitality. It's intangible in a way, but especially if you're in the business, you can tell.
yeah, absolutely. And an exclusive is still privately held.
Yeah, we're 100% family business, and I think that gives us huge advantages because of our sort of reinvestment philosophy, our people philosophy. Also, I think it gives us speed, which might sound a bit strange, but at the end of the day, if I need to make a decision, COVID was a really, we're not going backwards, but really interesting because we reacted so quickly because I didn't have any layers. At the end of the
Yeah,
day, sit down with my team and the senior management team, and we could make a decision, and it was done within half an hour. We pivoted. Is bad. Your comment about the rugby, but we really focused on sports because sports could trade, and within a matter of days, we'd got contracts with England football, some Premier League teams, and we'd been able to sort of discuss and implement so quickly that a lot of big corporations just can't do.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It makes a massive difference, especially in a time of adversity. The less hoops you have to jump through, the quicker you can move. I mean, that's just simple
Yeah,
facts.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So, well, we've actually spoken recently on another podcast, the Institute of Hospitality podcast. I'll just give that a shout out while It's my own show. I can do what I want. Um, and that was around sustainability, and I did want to kind of just touch on this because I suppose that's a real case in point of one being in an organization that where you can make that kind of decision and make a massive change quickly and swiftly and almost lead the way because you are the first UK hotel company to have got B-Corp accreditation. So tell us about where did that come from? Is that just one of these inspirational moments that you wake up one day and go, do you know what? I think we should go for that.
Yeah, basically,
Right?
almost sort of inspiration's quite hard to fall into, but I just am sort of passionate about the subject personally, but also just talking to, back to the point we're making about having conversations with a couple of people. I really I inspired by Sue Williams, who runs Watley Manor, and we're both sort of passionate at championing
Yeah.
um, environment, and she's taken a slightly different route, and we joke about it, but just having those conversations, and then I really wanted. Back to your point about people, I actually was looking for an accreditation that puts not just sustainability, sort of planet on. I wanted that, but I also wanted a people accreditation, and B Corp is basically people and planet.
Yeah.
So, and I also wanted a non-industry accreditation. So I was really clear on not wanting a hospitality accreditation. And B Corp there's 4,500 companies now accredited, and some really great brands from Ben and Jerry's to Abel and Cole to Cook. There's just some really good companies. So yeah, I kind of fell into it, but with a bit more thought and measure once the idea had started to seed.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you're kind of leading the way for others to follow. So you'll be the guy that all your mates will be picking up the phone to now and going. So how do we get past that, Danny?
But that's a great thing because if particularly the sustainability bit, we've all desperately got to jump on that, or we ain't going to have, without being over dramatic, we ain't going to have a planet in which to make any of these decisions. So the more people, it's not a competitive or non-competitive thing. It becomes the more, and I've already had sort of huge discussions with some people, but the more people jump on that bandwagon, for want of a better expression, the better it is for all of us, and the better it is. I'm a great believer in we can influence. One of the powers we have running any business is our supply chain, and if you can influence using our purchasing power, we spend £20 million a year on food and drink. If I can influence that supply chain to make better decisions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all interlinked. And, I'll come back to sport, actually. Lewis Hamilton's saying, I think, is we rise together.
Yeah,
And that's the same for the industry, isn't it? Really, we
yeah.
can all help each other out. But no, I salute you. It's wonderful work. I suppose one of the things that happens as you have climbed the ranks as you have, because you've been in the industry for a couple of years now, I think, is that you're a master inn holder as well, and I think you're also a previous chair of the master inn holders. Just talk us through what's, because I think you might be the first person that I've had on the show that's actually taken the chair position. What does that involve? Because that sounds like it's you're a custodian of something quite incredible.
I'm really been lucky enough to had a few nice achievements, and I'm really proud of being chairman of the Master Inn Holders. And one of the reasons is it's about giving back. We run some incredible programs. The MILD, the Aspiring Leaders Program, is basically a funded program that puts, as it says on the tin, aspiring leaders through. We work with Hilary Cook, Dr. Hilary
Yeah,
Cook, really incredible lady. We won the Princess Training Trust award for that program. We also send more senior people to Cranfield, Cornell, once again on scholarships, and for many of them, there's a lot of people who have come through that program years ago, and it's transformative. It takes them to the next level. People like Gareth Banner is now running the Ned and Ned Plus as it is going to be, or David Taylor runs a law group. Or there's so many people that have come through that, and they've gone from being very competent, hugely inspirational managers to to leaders without putting too fine a point on it. So
yeah,
I love that. I love that aspect of it. And once again, without I was chairman just when COVID hit, and try not to talk about COVID because, as you say, we don't want to go backwards. But the ability then we started running webinars just to help people. We had Kate Nichols on, just going through here's what's going on. Here's how you do this, people. Here's how you approach furlough. Here's how you can learn on this, and it became a sort of conduit for all of these guys and girls running amazing businesses, but in a situation they hadn't been before, and could share. With just messaging, sharing best practice, watching webinars about how to basically survive. And so, yeah, I'm really proud of that, and really passionate about it, because it is something very contemporary and modern in many ways, and I don't think it gets credit for that.
yeah. I think the way that you, and I hate to use this word, pivot. But you know, that's what everybody kind of had to do at the time where there was not the usual business going on. But the way that you did exactly what you just said there, it's kind of, it's difficult to understand at a time like that what you're supposed to be doing. You know,
Yeah.
because everything, you know, if it was kind of everything was taken away from everyone, really, wasn't it, in terms of what you're used to doing, and there was no playbook in how you respond or react to things. Nobody had even heard the word furlough before until that happened. So yeah, I think what you guys did was amazing in that time, and I can see that people would have taken great inspiration from it at a time where there was not much inspiration flying around.
No, none, none at all at one point. Yeah,
Yeah,
we want.
absolutely.
We need to move forward, don't
No,
we?
indeed, indeed. I mean, there was a little podcast that started on the back of for lockdown, so it wasn't all bad for sure. So
There was lots of positives. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And you have to go through the negatives to get to the positives. That's the Anyway. We'll leave that there. Great. Well, no, I mean, I suppose the big question now is, I suppose, what's next for Exclusive? What have you got coming, plans wise, if that you can reveal?
Lots, and it's so much. We one of the nice things about what I do now is just that continuation of evolving the product. We've got so every property has a plan. We've got a South Lodge. We've just about to plant a 5.4 hectare vineyard. We've got planning that we're going to build some eco lodges there. We've got a beautiful lake, and we're building these eco lodges on the edge of the lake, and we're turning the lake into we've already got a natural swim pond in the spa at South Lodge, but we're turning the lake into sort of a proper wild swimming lake. So you'll be able to sort
Fantastic.
of climb out of your eco lodge into the lake and do some proper wild swimming. We've got a lot of sort of tied in with the B-Corp thing. We're working with a really interesting company called the Land App, and so basically we've mapped all of our the land that we have, and to me, we're trying to reduce carbon everywhere, but also it's about sequestering more carbon. So what we're doing is looking at areas, and if we can plant something that helps us tell a story, but also sequesters more carbon. And for example, we've got an orchard at Lainston that we're expanding, and that does two things for us. We already produce our own apple juice. So if you stay at Lainston, you get the in-room amenity is a bottle of apple juice. But
Fabulous.
if we can expand that, we're sequestering more carbon, we're telling a new story. We're going to at South Lodge, we're going to plant a wild orchard, which I've never heard of, but it's actually an orchard where you also encourage the brambles and things to grow. So you're sort of sequestering more carbon, but as part of the guest experience, you can walk through the vineyard, walk through the orchard, walk into the kitchen garden, and have all of that produce. It would take us a while to get the wine through, but we're partnering with Ridgeview there. So the end aim is that you drink apple juice from the grounds. You'll have, when you arrive, that there'll be a single estate South Lodge in partnership with Ridgeview, who are
Beautiful.
amazing winemakers. Bottle of wine in your room. It's going to be, yeah. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
I can see your body language changes completely when you're talking about it. So it's clearly a little bit of a passion project, but very exciting. You're just utilizing what you've kind of already got available to do stuff with.
Yeah, and
It's really
and that's
cool.
back to the evolution of what we were talking about earlier. The evolution of hotels, because they started off in many ways. We kind of gone a bit circular, because a lot of very early hotels would have had a kitchen garden or would have produced their own produce, and
Yeah,
um, but I think we kind of lost that on the way as an industry, and now it's very much starting to come. We're not the first people to plant a vineyard, or some really inspirational people. Dan Rose Bristow at the Torridon, who's got his own cattle and his own kitchen garden, and probably slightly more by necessity where he is. But so lots of people are doing it. But I think that's definitely evolving, and it's evolving with integrity, because you see some of the big brands who have city centre hotels, and they're eco-friendly because they've got a beehive on the roof.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's sort of, but I genuinely think that's gaining traction everywhere. And you look at we've got a few other exciting planning in the mix, and I won't say, because I'm a great believer, until I've got the planning, you can't
Yeah, that's
do
fair
it. But
enough.
when we started, it goes back to, we didn't have a cookery school, and at Lainston we that that is now part of the hotel experience. We built a second restaurant during the last lockdown, and we put wood-fired ovens in, and now we partner with Weber, so we do cookery courses, partner with Weber, or you can do wood-fired cooking, and that's back to those sort of micro projects. They're just great to expand the overall proposition,
Yeah.
because also what we're trying to do is, and you're going to have to stop me talking a minute, because I get excited when you say what's
Oh,
next. But
carry on.
everywhere we want to have more than one dining experience, and we want to offer hugely different options. So I'm huge. I love you know in old money fine dining. So we've got Michelin starred restaurants, but also love more contemporary. So at the Manor, you've got a Michelin starred restaurant, but we own the pub, which is as close to some of the bedrooms as the main restaurant, and we
Yeah.
just got that in the top 50 gastro pubs. And Jamie, the chef down there, is a fantastic cook, and it's sort of local, and it's proper good quality gastro pub food. In Yeah, so there's all sorts of projects like that going on.
Yeah, and I suppose the projects keep you and those around you re-energized and refocused, and obviously, I suppose at the same time, not dropping the ball on the other things that you have in play on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and goes back to what we were saying. You can never drop the ball on hospitality. But then, the exciting thing there is we're working really hard on our sort of people brand and people proposition, and we've got some new training programs in place. So that's kind of the creativity behind that. We've got Food and Beverage Academy that we're starting. We've got a really hugely successful Chefs Academy, and we take 12 chefs a year at a level 2 or 3 qualified. And the experience is amazing for them. They get to
Yeah,
go to all sorts of really interesting places, but we're layering that on with front of house now. We're expanding that into an advanced pastry academy. And it's that experiential piece. If you can make work and education at work, or learning and development, part an experiential thing, and it's a mixture. Some of it's online, but it always incorporates real life visits. The chefs go down, they get up at 4 in the morning and go to Brixham Fish Market and go out on a boat, and it's a
nice.
great.
Yeah,
If you can't learn from that, or go to a butcher, they go to an abattoir. It's interesting, because it's actually one of the most, once they've been, one of the best feedback on courses we get. But properly understand a whole animal, a whole carcass, and then sort of break it down, and then get to cook with it, and you've got a bit more of respect for your ingredients. So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's fabulous, and I love the fact that I mean, more or less all the way through, regardless of the fact that you've been with the organization now for, as we said, a couple of years. You're you're not sitting on your hands, like you're not resting on any of your laurels. that that evolution piece is so important, because otherwise, I suppose at the end of the day, that's the nature of all business, is that it does evolve, and if you're not doing your bit, you're going to get left behind.
Absolutely, you effectively die. I mean, there's some iconic. We can all think of iconic hotels or iconic restaurants that aren't here anymore.
Yeah,
Why? Because they didn't evolve, or if they don't evolve, they do it in a very clever way because they're very clear on what they always think of. The Ritz is a great example which has evolved, but it's got a very niche. It's still understand. It's still got that, and we don't want to be in that market, but they're very clear. It's a shirt and tie still. You can't go in the building, but because they've got that clarity, they're evolving in their own way, but they're also not evolving in that's our market niche, if I'm
yeah,
making any sense. So, however you evolve, you've got to understand what's at the core, what are you about, and then evolve around that.
yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. A question I love to ask everyone who comes on the show. It's probably the question that everybody dreads, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you have any funny stories that you can share with us from your career so far?
Yeah, some probably aren't too repeatable. I
Yeah,
one of my favourite was when I was at the Sheraton, Washington, and they used to do a lot of really big society weddings, and there was a particular bride. It was 1,800 person wedding, so
my part. That's a
pretty big
convention.
wedding to say the least. Yeah, I mean it was just incredible. That was just under capacity of the ballroom.
I don't think I
And
know 1,800 people.
well, that's why I say it's society weddings because she probably didn't,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that was the sort of weddings they used to hold. But the bride had got obsessed with having a lot of tears on the cake,
right.
and I always remember they'd got to having 27 tears on the cake, and
My God.
it's just incredible. I mean, the top ones were it was very fixed in with all these rods. And she wanted, it was being carried on a, like a sort of pallbearers. They was on poles and a platform and carried in.
Right.
And because the lights and the tech were absolutely amazing, they had these spotlights they dimmed the lights and they had played all this music before. It's all pre-planned, of course, and the lights came down on the door and the cake came in. But what no one had done was measure the height of
Oh,
the
no.
cake versus the door. So only about 10 layers of the cake actually made it into the room.
Oh,
But
goodness.
you shouldn't ever laugh at someone else's misfortune, but it was one of the funniest
Yeah.
events of just watching how that happens.
Yeah. God, I'm imagining 27 tiers must have, like the bottom tier must have needed a digger to move it or something. A forklift truck, probably. That's better than a digger. But anyway,
Can I have one more?
of course, yes. Unleash.
So when we had we had at a point, obviously everyone knows we've got the England rugby team, and this is back in the days when Jonny Wilkinson was probably a absolute superstar,
Oh, God.
and we also had some filming going on in the area, so we had some A-list celebrities, and I always remember walking in to the spa at Penny Hill, and I was doing a show round for a couple, and they walked in, and Jonny Wilkinson was sitting in the lounge having a cup of coffee, and the chap turned round and said, "Well, obviously you've laid on some eye candy for my wife. What are you going to do for me?" And at that exact moment, the A-list celebrity we had in was Cameron Diaz, and she walked around a corner and literally bumped into him, and then said, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry," and moved on. And he said, "That is
That'll do
hospitality
it.
like I've never seen in my life."
Oh, brilliant. And you would love to say that you planned that perfectly, right? But that's one of the most beautiful things that's the sort of stuff that happens all the time, is that just ducks get in a row, and there you are.
And the beauty of what we do.
Absolutely. That's superb. And two celebrities for the price of one in that story as well. That's great. No, thank you very much. Final question before I let you go. What would be your top 3 reasons for somebody to join hospitality?
So many. I think it's the most egalitarian. You just look at it, and there's Michelin-starred chefs that started out as kitchen porters. There's MDs of international hotel groups who started off as bellboys. I've got some of my GMs, Debbie, who runs Royal Berkshire. She started off as a receptionist at Penny Hill. It's so, if you got the right attitude and you work hard like any other industry, and then it's so rewarding for all of that interaction you get with people, the people you meet, the experiences you have are just, I would say that it's variety, the people you meet, and that ability out of any industry just to progress really fast.
Yeah.
And no day is the same in hospitality. You're not doing the same thing. You're just, one day I can be talking to interior designers, designing a bedroom or a restaurant. The next I can be talking about sales and marketing strategy, or sitting down with a really interesting PR person or social media guru, or just
and how are we going to stop the leaves going in the pool?
Absolutely. And it's all really interesting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
even the leaves is interesting.
Yeah. Well, do you know what?
Genuinely, it's
I come back to your the right at the beginning of your journey when you were making sandwiches, and I did mean to say at the time, one of the first jobs that I ever had away from my parents' business was washing dishes in a diner in America, and that happened by accident because the local workforce went out on strike, and I ended up picking up the pieces as somebody who's over there on a student exchange. And I tell you what, it was the best 3 days of my life. I absolutely, because it's busy. You're relentlessly talking to people all around you all the time. The interaction with every part of the service team and the kitchen team coming in all the time. And I was just like, hospitality is awesome, because I get to just sit here and wash dishes and talk to people all day. And the thing that I think I learned the most from that is that actually your ability to find the fun in what other people contemplate being beneath them or a mundane task will serve you well in the world generally, not just within hospitality. But there's fun everywhere. You don't even have to look that hard.
Absolutely.
Excellent. And that's a wonderful way to clear this conversation and to round that off. And Danny, I thank you so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure to chew the fat and learn about your journey, and look forward to catching up again soon.
And thank you so much. And does everyone get to see your merch on this?
Yes, when this finally gets loaded up onto YouTube, yes. I have to say the orders haven't been particularly forthcoming, but all in good time. Well, you have to sell them first, don't you? That's the thing. But no, thanks again, Danny.
No, thank you for having me.
No problem at all. See you soon. And there we have it. What a cracking journey from Danny, demonstrating how important it is to continue evolving and keeping your product, your people, and yourself as fresh as possible. A huge thank you to Danny for continuing to be such a wonderful inspiration. We will, of course, be back next Wednesday with another cracking story from hospitality. So until then, thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.